Hollywood Harbaugh is in LA. Yesterday, the Chargers introduced their new head coach about like a week or so, whatever, after he officially accepted the job that had been long rumored that Jim Harbaugh was going to go back to the NFL, and so now he has arrived in LA. Jack, you hear him? He's going to while the Chargers are finishing the new facility, which is I guess another part of town. He's going to live in an RV for at least 2 or 3 months before I guess he has a new facility, decides where he is going to live. So I expect nothing less from Jim Harbaugh. We're going to talk about the press conference and who might be going with him to LA. Some interesting nuggets coming out here in the past few hours, few days. But I want to ask you guys this as we are jumping into the offseason. Keep us motivated to keep making videos, bringing you the inside scoop on Michigan football. Let's get to 50 new Michigan football fans who subscribe to the channel here on YouTube today. We've got a great show for you, including some juicy rumors on a couple superstars on Michigan football team that are maybe considering the transfer portal with some crazy NIL deals coming in from agents kind of repping other schools. It's all that and more. Michigan Football Report by Chat Sports. Let's go. Coming up here in the show, we're going to talk a little bit about Jim Harbaugh, even some insight maybe into why he left Michigan, which I don't know, maybe it's not that big of a surprise, but I think a lot of Michigan fans think it's, it's money, or it's maybe Sherrone Moore, or maybe he's not Sherrone Moore, I'm sorry, Ward Manuel, or he's sick of recruiting and NIL transfers. Maybe not all of that. We'll tell you more about that later in the show, but I did want to start off with some wild rumors, wild happenings. The Twitter detectives are out in full force on a lot of things, including like which new coaches or players, some other teams that certain Michigan players started following on Instagram, started following on Twitter, what that may mean. And we're going to kind of connect some dots, like what, this follow means for this person, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to be a show you will not want to miss. But we'll start with coaches, right? Couple coaches are LA bound, at least according to like every reasonable expectation out there. And that's, of course, is Jesse Minter and Jay Harbaugh, right? Special teams coordinator, safeties coach at Michigan. Jay Harbaugh, not really sure of his role there in LA. Might actually be the tight ends coach. Jesse Minter clearly going to be the defensive coordinator for the Chargers. But not just those two, maybe. We'll see. Expect those two, but maybe as many as 3 or 4 of current Michigan football staffers. Also saw a video that Christina DeRuyter, whatever her name is, who's like kind of the on-campus recruiting lead, right? When people come on campus, she shows them around, make sure it's a great environment. She was in LA for Jim Harbaugh's introductory press conference with his wife, so I'm not sure if that means Michigan's losing her to a different kind of role there. But Jesse Minter, Jay Harbaugh, talk some more about that. But before I do, I just want to address some issues because people around the internet are just really confused because it's been reported by some of the blog boys for at least like 5 or 6 days that Jesse Minter's already accepted the job, right? I've actually seen headlines of articles of publications that used to matter that really don't matter anymore that cover Michigan football. And his Wikipedia page even says for Jesse Minter, he is the current defensive coordinator of the Chargers. Now, we all think it's probably going to happen, but it actually hasn't happened. So what took so long, in my opinion, was really guided by what's happened in the last 2 or 3 days. Number one, was Mike Macdonald going to leave the Baltimore Ravens? Okay, cool. That did happen. Congratulations to him. He got the head coaching job with the Seattle Seahawks. Awesome to see. Now there's kind of 3 Harbaugh brothers, Jim, John, and Mike Macdonald, 3, basically 10% of NFL coaches. The other thing to consider there for Minter is the Ravens there, and then who are they going to hire as their DC? I think there was a chance out there that Jesse Minter at least wanted to have the conversation with John Harbaugh about going and backfilling at that Ravens defensive coordinator job, but that did not happen. They hired their linebackers coach Zach Orr to be the new DC, and the Tennessee Titans hired another Ravens defensive coordinators. I mean, their defensive coaching staff. And just think about how strong Jay Harbaugh or John Harbaugh has done in recruiting defensive staff members over the past few years. Jesse Minter, Mike Macdonald, Zach Orr, linebackers coach, now new DC with the Ravens. And then Denard Wilson, the secondary coach, now new Titans defensive coordinator. So those are 2 names that had been rumored to be top targets for Michigan. Those guys have shots. They're NFL defensive coordinators. We expect Jesse Minter to be one as well with the Chargers. Hell, could be by the time you watch this video Friday afternoon, but I do expect it to happen this weekend. Jim Leonhard, though, will not be Michigan's defensive coordinator. A lot of rumblings that he could be a top candidate. Wasn't came Luke Fickell came over and took over at Wisconsin after he was, Leonhard was the interim coach for a few games to end the 2020, I believe it was 2 season. and spent this last season as like analyst for his old buddy Brett Bielema who's now the head coach at Illinois. So he's there. Some rumblings, which I don't necessarily believe, that Leonard thinks he's getting an NFL defensive coordinator job, but this seems maybe a stretch for me. But reportedly, no mutual interest, or the parties are not mutually interested to continue conversations. Sounds like they at least had one conversation, Sherrone Moore and Jim Leonard, but he will not be the new defensive coordinator at Michigan, which I actually think is good. I actually think it's a good thing that they're not trying to reinvent a new system, because the system that Michigan has built with Mike Macdonald, with Jesse Minter over the past 3 seasons clearly works for what they are trying to do. Most importantly, stop Ohio State's offense. And so I think it should either be somebody from that Ravens staff, someone who's worked for Macdonald, worked for Minter in the past, or somebody on the Michigan staff currently to elevate them up. They've been running for 2 years or 3 years from 2021 to 2023. A lot more to talk about, including transfer portal rumors, NIL stuff. But I also want to ask you guys this question. We are now 6 days officially. Well, 1 week it was announced last Friday. So 1 week into the Sherrone era, 6 days since his press conference on Saturday. How confident are you in the future of Michigan football? Scale of 1 to 100. Answer down in the comments. Jack, put you on the spot. 1 to 100. What's your confidence?
Give me. Well, it's tough because there's still so many dominoes that haven't fallen yet. I'm gonna say 75.
All right, Jack, there you go. 75 is in there. I'm 100. 0 to 100 real quick. I'm going full 100. I don't think there's any reason why Michigan can't and won't win the national championship again in the 2024 season. Alex Orji, Jack, some people are calling him, a combination of Cam Newton and Superman. I'm not sure if he can throw the ball. Could be a thing, but maybe Michigan runs like a triple, wing T offense or something like that with Orji. I'm starting to get on the Orji train, Jack. I'm a big Orji guy now. Want to see what he's going to do in the spring. Let me know what you guys. Jack's at 75. I'm at 100. 1 through 100. How confident are you? Be honest in the future of Michigan football. Let's keep it rolling here. More coaching rumors and insight, okay, on what's been happening with this program since Jim Harbaugh left and Sherrone Moore took the job. How about Mike Elston? This is an important one because all the dominoes, the rest of the things we're going to talk about the show really are connected to this one story. I thought it was a for sure. He's been on the road, right? He's not only Michigan's defensive line coach, but he runs the recruiting department. Had that role at Notre Dame, coming over, continuing it in Michigan. And okay, he's on the road. Jim Harbaugh's out interviewing. Mike Elston's keeping things home. But there's been a lot of rumblings that Elston is making a decision. It's kind of 50-50 on whether he wants to go out and try his chops as a defensive line coach in the NFL. Now, if he left, it could have serious consequences. And I just don't mean the recruiting department. I just don't mean that Michigan has to hire a new defensive line coach. That's not necessarily the serious consequences. Immediately, I think 2 of the probably 5 most valuable players on Michigan's roster next year are on the defensive line, right? Interior guys, superstar, I think top 15 draft picks either next year or maybe Grant in 2 years. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, what is going on with those 2 players? But I got to tell you guys what is going on with Prize Picks, my absolute favorite app this football season. It is the fastest and easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. You can just pick up more or less on up to 6 player stats from up to 25 times your money. Just picking more or less, and that's what I've done here for the big game, as they call it, Jack. I don't know why people don't say the S word, but we all know it's the Super Bowl. That's fine. Patrick Mahomes, okay? This is kind of a freebie there. You see 265.5 yards crossed out in red. Basically, he's got to play the game, complete 1 pass, a half yard. So clearly, I'm going more on that one. Also going more on Isaiah Pacheco, the running back for the Chiefs. I'm going more on half a touchdown. So will he score a touchdown or won't he? Rush or receiving touchdowns. I'm going more there. And then 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey. They're going to get him the ball in the air, 35.5 yards, receiving more on that. So I'm going more. Sherrone Moore, more on the Prize Picks app. You just pick more, like Sherrone Moore, Les Miles. That's how easy it is. We're more guys, right? Les Miles had his chance, didn't come through. Get going with Prize Picks. I love it. You get up to a $100 deposit match when you use code CLNS. That's code CLNS. Use that link right on the screen there, prizepicks.com/CLNS. Type it in your browser right now. You'll be prompted to get going with Prize Picks. When you make your first deposit and sign up, use code CLNS for up to a $100 deposit match. I get on Prize Picks, make my picks in under 60 seconds. It's super fun, super easy to use, and now you can also take advantage of up to a $100 deposit match. Get going, have some fun. Prize Picks, get going with the big game, Super Bowl next Sunday. How about Mason Graham? All right, from Central California area, was like an hour and a half or so outside of LA. Didn't get recruited as hard from teams in the California area, right? The Pac-12. I think Boise State was a school he considered, and I think there's just so many rumors. Oh, maybe he's going to transfer to Boise State. I don't think that's the problem here. I do think Mason Graham is going to be a top 15 pick in the 2025 NFL draft. All right, but he's going to stick around Michigan. To be determined. Kenneth Grant, right? These two players, and I wouldn't even consider Grant a full-time starter this past year, but these two guys, we probably have to go back to Miami in the early 2000s or the 90s, maybe Florida State, Miami, of having two players this dominant on the interior of the same defensive line as sophomores, right? Playing together another year as juniors. That's what Michigan has coming back. You add that with the guys on the outside coming back, Derek Moore, Josiah Stewart. Michigan should have the top 2 or 3 defensive line in all of college football, if not the best. But the rumblings on Mason Graham are, look, he made $70,000, is what he said publicly in NIL money last year. Okay, pretty decent. That sounds pretty good. Better than zero he would have made 3 or 4 years ago. But he's getting back channeled by agents. Now, this is kind of how these schools are getting away with it. It's an agent who's representing a school in some regard, but not in an official capacity, kind of saying, hey, I've got school A and school B. They'll offer you $500,000, $600,000, $750,000 apparently for Mason Graham to come and basically be a 1-year rental on a contender, let's say maybe a Texas or an LSU or Ole Miss. Not saying those schools in particular, but if one of these guys or both left for Michigan, I mean, the production they had this past year, really playing both of them less than, I would say, 60% of the snaps is all really that either one of these guys ever played in a single game. Huge stats. You'll be placing 12.5 tackles for loss. You'll be placing 6.5 sacks. You'll be placing over 60 tackles, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries. We'll see what happens. Kenneth Grant has followed multiple people on social media from schools like Texas and others. Follow Coach Sark. People are following Mason Graham's follows on Instagram, on Twitter. And I think, kind of circling it all the way back to what we talked about with Mike Elston. If you lose your head coach, Jim Harbaugh, you lose maybe the guy you work with the most behind the head coach and your position coach, which is Ben Herbert, the strength and conditioning guys. Now, these are defensive linemen, right? They're pumping iron, right? They're getting huge. They're in there in the gym a lot. Okay, so Ben Herbert leaves. Jim Harbaugh leaves. Then your defensive coordinator leaves, okay? Jesse Minter. Then your position coach, Mike Elston, which I don't know if he's going to go for sure. I still think it's 50-50, right? It's 50-50 at this point. We'll probably know within hours or maybe a day or two of this video publishing here on Friday afternoon. But if you get all 4 of those things, right, then who are you staying there for other than your teammates, right? 18 starters moving on to the NFL after this season. So it should be caught off guard, though. I want to warn and just give some thoughts here to Mason Graham in particular, maybe even Kenneth Grant, if they were consider leaving and going to another school, is you just won a national championship at Michigan. Think about your life in 15 years, 20 years, 50 years. That's always going to be a part of you, part of who you are known, part of what you're about. Don't go. You guys are first-round draft pick potential, both of you. In a year from now, maybe 2 years from now for both of you. Don't go chasing what will turn out to be maybe 5 years from now. $750,000, ton of money, huge money. Get some insurance to make sure you're protected against injury. But $750,000 for a player of Mason Graham's stature is going to be a week's paycheck by the time he's in his mid to late 20s if he produces at the level that we all think he can going out of this year and into the pros. Don't be kind of like the one player that is just not welcome back in some regards by Michigan fans, star player from this team to go chase some money for 1 year. The NFL is still there. I hope Michigan puts together some sort of package to make it worth your while, Mason Graham. But remember what team recruited you, what team brought you in, what team gave you starter snaps as a freshman, superstar snaps and effort, and involvement as a sophomore, and what team is really set up to make you continue to be a superstar into the 2024 season. Boom, you're in the draft. $750,000. That's going to be a signing bonus if you have a bad season. So just a word of advice to Mason Graham. I hope these schools pay the price, right? Tennessee seems to be coming down right now. Florida State's got some heat on them right now. Iowa contacted apparently an Alabama player before they were officially in the transfer portal, an offensive lineman. So I hope all these schools pay the price, that they're breaking the rules. NIL, I understand. I hope they do some sort of revenue sharing, et cetera, so it doesn't have to be all these schematics and, back door schemes and collectives and all this different stuff, because it's all basically just taking, money that would normally just be under the table money and now putting it over the table, etc. But NIL is more supposed to be, hey, a car dealership, a drink company, a YouTube channel, a media company, paying you to do something, not just being a pay-for-play thing, which is what the transfer portal and NIL has seemed to turn into. So I hope that if Mason Graham's getting contacted by these people, he decides to stay to Michigan, go make a quick call to the NCAA and tell them exactly what happened, who offered you what, when they offered it to you, and who they were representing. Before we continue, make sure you guys are helping us if you can. If you like what you see, if you like the show, if you've liked it in the past, help us grow this offseason. Every time a Michigan football fan likes it, typically we get 3 to 5 more Michigan fans who have never watched the show. It'll show up in their YouTube feed the next time they launch that YouTube app. So help us grow. The best recommendation for a Michigan football show always comes from another Michigan football fan. Make it easy for YouTube to do that. Press that like button. Boom. More Michigan football fans will be able to watch today's program. How about Mike Hart? Very conspicuously or inconspicuously, whatever the way you want to take it, absent from Sherrone Moore's press conference on Saturday, right? Okay, cool. Jay Harbaugh was even there, and we don't expect him to be on there. Mike Hart was not. Not been on the road recruiting, right? Every other coach that's still with the program, and we expect to be with the program, even Mike Elston, who might not be with the program, have been on the road recruiting. Sherrone Moore's been on the road this entire week recruiting 2024, getting a jump on 2025. Source told me he's looking around, unsure he comes back. Now, this one I'm not 100% sure here that I know for a fact, but there is credible chatter out there from people I know is that Hart thought he was on a better career path than Sherrone Moore, even though he wasn't the offensive coordinator a year or two ago, right? They both kind of came to Michigan. I guess we're part of this change in the staff. Moore had been there in 2018, 2019, 2020, but Harbaugh really shifted the staff around going into the 2021 season, moved Sherrone Moore to offensive line coach. Boom. Mike Hart, associate head coach, kind of second in charge at Indiana. Boom, bring him over as running backs coach at Michigan. Hart not really feeling the love that he didn't get enough play to maybe be elevated to offensive coordinator or co-OC, and didn't get even an ask or a conversation from Jim Harbaugh or Ward Manuel for this head coaching job. Maybe there's some hurt feelings. Doesn't sound like Harbaugh has recruited him at all to be part of his staff in LA. Maybe there's hurt feelings there. Whether or not Mike Hart comes back next year, I think is to be determined. He deserves a lot of credit, though, right? If you think the turnaround of this Michigan football program is anything other than these 3 areas, I got something else. I got some swampland to tell you. Is the running game, the offensive line, and of course the defense, right? So you think back to 2021, it's Sherrone Moore, it's Mike Hart, it's Mike McDonald. McDonald's now an NFL head coach. Sherrone Moore, head coach at Michigan, maybe as prestigious as the Seattle Seahawks head coach. And then Mike Hart hasn't really elevated his career. I mean, look at the running game in 2020. Look at the running game in 2019 versus the last 3 years. So give Mike Hart a lot of credit. He deserves what he has, and I don't blame him for being maybe upset that he's not getting consideration for head coach or even offensive coordinator, associate head coach job. He might want to go look to be an OC elsewhere. Maybe there could be a full-time job out there, the head coaching job he could have in college football in a lower-tier program. If he comes back, still a Michigan legend. But if he leaves, don't really blame him. But I hope certainly that he does stay. He seemed off at media day. I thought so. Of all the people there, Jack and I talked to him a little bit. He kind of seemed just like, I don't know, not comfortable in his skin. Maybe I know that's the thing, and it just didn't really make sense why at the time. But it just didn't seem like he was having as much fun as everybody else, frankly, at media day for Michigan. We'll see how things shake out with Mike Hart, given his history, 4-year starter, leading rusher in school history, a lot of records. Who is the greatest running back in Michigan football history? Who is the GOAT, the running back GOAT at this program? I think it's Blake Corum at this point. National championship, multi-year starter, 26-0 as a starter as running back, and the record for most touchdowns in Michigan football history. I am going with Blake Corum. Let me know who the best running back in Michigan football history is for you. Jim Harbaugh, as we mentioned, was introduced in LA. Some notes from his press conference. He praised the Moore hire. Michigan, of course, made the right choice. Clearly, his recommendation and putting him in more at the top of the list for interim coach during the suspensions this past season helped. Called Moore on fire right now. Went to go on how hard he's hitting recruiting already. Asked about Jesse Minter. Asked about Jay Harbaugh. Just praised those guys. Deflected on whether them or other Michigan coach would be joining him. Said his staff decision to be made in the next week or so. And why he left Michigan, it really didn't seem for him, at least, to come down to anything to do with money or power or NIL or recruiting. He said over and over, but most notably this quote, "The Lombardi Trophy. That's my mission." And another quote, he said, "There's no Lombardi Trophy in college football." Some more things he said. He said, "I feel that the Spanos family, the Chargers organization, they made it clear they liked what I did, how I did it. And that's all you ever want to hear from somebody that's employing you." All right? That's all you want to hear from somebody who's employing you. So love Michigan, love the NFL, and this opportunity. And as my dad would say, who's got it better than us? So how about that quote there, Jack, right? He said, all you ever want from somebody that's employing you is to say they like what you do and like you do it. Interesting. Now, was that a shot at Ward Manuel? Was it a very subtle shot? What do you think?
Not feeling the love in Michigan?
That's what they said, right? Not feeling the love. Maybe it's just a thing he said, but that seemed to me kind of like just a small dig at Michigan's administration, not feeling the love. It's been a theme over the past several years of Harbaugh, especially coming out of that 2020 season. Also, to address something, I do not think that he is looting the Michigan staff. I don't think he is actively recruiting. Jesse Minter, you got to accept that one was going to happen pretty much no matter what. And Jay Harbaugh, it's his son. You expect that one. Whether Mike Elston or Mike Hart or Steve Clinkscale or someone else were to go to the Chargers or, of course, Ben Herbert, I think if they contacted Harbaugh and said, "I'd love to work with your staff, you have a job for me, would you make an offer?" and Harbaugh can make him the financial offer they're looking for, he's taking them. He's got a spot for him. Hey, you coach me at Michigan. But I don't think he's saying, "I need you here. We're going to do everything you want." I don't think he's like laying it on thick to get them to leave Michigan, which is what I think some Michigan football fans have tried to paint out there on the internet streets. But I just want to say, I'm wearing this shirt. It's unintentional, Jack. I just happened to put this shirt on this morning. It's a little Marine Layer, sponsor of the show. Go check them out. I'm a Chargers fan now. I'm a Chargers fan. I've been watching Jim Harbaugh motivational speeches, his press conference yesterday. I'm a Chargers fan. I ordered a Chargers hat. I'll be here next week, but I'll be back after the Super Bowl in studio. So I'm a Chargers fan until Jim Harbaugh is not coaching there. Maybe forever, the rest of my life. Whoever hires, whoever drafts J.J. McCarthy, maybe I'll be a fan of that team too. And the mother load would be if someone drafts McCarthy, Harbaugh, and somehow Mike Sainristil, Blake Corum end up on one of those two teams. Then I'll just be a super fan, like I, of course, have been for the Wolverines. I'm glad for what Michigan did with Jim Harbaugh. I'm glad he came back when the program was maybe at its lowest point, December of 2014. Turn him around 9 years later, 3 state Big Ten titles, national championships. If you're with me on this one, Harbaugh will also always be a Michigan man. I think left the program the right way. Comment, thank you, Jim. Quickly, let's roll through the priorities for Sherrone Moore in these next few weeks as he's putting together what this program will look like under his tenure. He needs to get a new defensive coordinator, okay? He was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. They asked him specifically about it. He said, and he just basically put out the obvious that, hey, Jesse Minter's not coming back to Michigan. He said, we haven't replaced the defensive coordinator yet. We've got a few names and people in the boat to do that. The staff is starting to shake out. By the next week or so, we'll have that in place, kind of just breaking out a few different quotes there and wrapping it up into defensive coordinator. Got a few people, full staff. Have to expect that by next week. So I would expect before next Friday, even Super Bowl, that the full 10-member Michigan football assistant coaching staff will be named. Got to name a new offensive coordinator, right? He was the offensive coordinator last 3 years, solo this year. Shared it with Matt Weiss, Josh Gaddis the prior 2 years. But is it going to be him? I don't know. But I guess the thoughts, in my opinion, was that Kirk Campbell, the quarterback's coach, right, only 1 year as quarterback's coach. The prior season, he was more support staff analyst. But he's got coordinating experience, Old Dominion. They ran a different offense that I think Michigan will run under Sherrone Moore and have under Jim Harbaugh. But I do think Kirk Campbell will be announced. I bet the DC, OC, and the rest of the staff, they're not going to put out press releases every time someone's hired. I bet next Friday, next Thursday, Michigan will just have a press conference. We have named our 2024 football staff, and everyone will be named at the same time. But you got to complete that staff, okay? Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, you got a special teams coordinator and safeties coach you've got to replace. Mike Hart might have to replace the running backs coach. May have to replace a defensive line coach. So a lot of hiring he's got to do. And outside of that, not just the hiring of coaches on the staff, he's got to put together a recruiting department, okay? Mike Elston and others have led it, but if that Christina DeRuyter is leaving, et cetera, people might go with Jim Harbaugh. People might pursue other roles. But Sherrone Moore says he wants to be more aggressive in recruiting. And I think that for a new coach, he's going to get that first and second, maybe even third-year bump if the team is performing well on the field. After that, you're not going to get that new coach hot bump from prospects. So 2025 recruiting class is going to be huge. He needs to be pushing Michigan's administration to have a bigger budget, bigger support staff, whatever he needs to make it happen for Michigan to get back into the top 6, top 7, top 8 of recruiting classes. Now, a lot of chatter out there that he's going to hire a general manager of Michigan football. I definitely think that this is a needed position. One candidate out there, only 29 years old, is Notre Dame Director of Recruiting Chad Bowden, recommended by Mike Elston. They worked together for a season or two in Notre Dame as well. But now reports are coming out late last night, early today, that Notre Dame is very confident that they are going to keep him with an elevated pay structure and maybe a title. So maybe he's not going to be general manager of Michigan football, maybe of Notre Dame. But yeah, you got to put together recruiting. You got to roster management, recruiting players, roster management, maybe knowing who's leaving the transfer portal, who's coming in the transfer portal, NIL, right? So many things going on. Head coach just can't do all those things anymore. And part of that is going to be putting together a leaders and best, right? Michigan football, the leaders and best NIL strategy, which I still think Michigan had all their ducks in a row from top to bottom of the program over the last few years under Jim Harbaugh and Jim Harbaugh and Warren Manuel. There can't be any more NIL excuses, right? Ohio State is spending millions, right? They're just basically doing what we talked about with Mason Graham. They're going to players at other schools saying, enter the transfer portal. We'll give you X amount of dollars. It is strictly a pay for play. I hope Ohio State gets punished for it because they're clearly cheating. But Michigan can't have any NIL excuses. If someone like Mason Graham or Kenneth Grant transfers this spring, is not playing part of this team this year because of money, Michigan should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. If you made it to the end of the show and you liked what you saw, make sure you leave us a like here in the Michigan Football Report. Help spread the gospel. We will be in Las Vegas next week, Super Bowl week. I'll try and do a couple shows there from Radio Row in Vegas. So make sure you guys are following along here on YouTube, of course, and I'm at Twitter at James Yoder. I'll be putting stuff on there. So I'll see you guys next time. Go Blue.